When I first started dating my boyfriend, things felt surprisingly easy between us. We met through mutual friends when I was just starting university, and he had already been working for a couple of years. At the time, the age difference didn't seem like a big deal. He was confident, funny, and seemed to know exactly what he wanted out of life. I was younger and still figuring things out, so I guess I admired that about him. Being around someone who seemed so sure of himself made me feel more secure too. For most of our relationship, things were honestly really good. We rarely fought, and whenever something small did come up, we usually talked it out quickly. I thought we had a pretty healthy dynamic. We had been together for almost 4 years by the time this happened. Over those years, we built routines together that felt comfortable and familiar. It felt like our relationship had a strong foundation. That's why when he first mentioned the idea of a threesome, it completely caught me off guard. It wasn't something we had ever discussed before. I remember feeling confused more than anything. At first I thought he was joking, but the way he kept talking about it made it clear he was serious. He said it had always been one of his biggest fantasies. I didn't react well when he first brought it up. The idea of bringing another person into our sex life made me uncomfortable immediately. It made me question whether I was somehow not enough for him. He tried to reassure me right away. He said it had nothing to do with me lacking anything and that it was just something he had always been curious about. Still, the conversation left a weird feeling hanging over me. For a while after that, the topic disappeared completely. We went back to normal life and didn't bring it up again. I assumed maybe he realized it wasn't something I was comfortable with. And honestly, the months after that conversation were great. We spent more time together, went on small trips, and things between us felt really strong again. I started to forget about that uncomfortable discussion entirely. Then a few weeks ago, the topic suddenly came up again. This time he brought it up much more casually. Instead of presenting it like a big fantasy, he talked about it like it was just something couples sometimes try together. That made the conversation feel less intense. He kept emphasizing that it would only happen if I wanted it too. He told me over and over again that my comfort was the most important thing. Hearing that made it harder to just say no immediately. We ended up talking about it over several days. At first I was hesitant, but he was patient and calm the entire time. He answered every concern I brought up. He said we would set very clear boundaries. No emotional attachment. No ongoing relationship with the third person. Just one experience. He also said something that stuck with me. He told me that sometimes exploring things together can actually bring couples closer. I don't know exactly when my mindset started to shift. Maybe it was the way he framed it as something we would experience together. Maybe it was the fact that he kept reassuring me he wouldn't be upset if I changed my mind. Eventually I agreed. Even after agreeing, I still felt nervous about the whole thing. The idea of actually finding someone felt incredibly awkward to me. I had no idea how people even approach something like that. We agreed that it shouldn't be someone we already knew personally. That was one of the boundaries we both felt strongly about. It seemed safer that way. But finding a complete stranger felt even more uncomfortable. I had no idea where to start looking. Then I remembered a girl from one of my seminars at university. We weren't friends, but we followed each other on Instagram. From her profile, I knew she was bisexual. I remember staring at the message box for a long time before sending anything. It felt like one of the most awkward things I had ever done. I kept wondering if she would think I was insane. Eventually, I just typed out a simple message asking if she would be open to something like that. I tried to make it sound respectful and not weird, which was probably impossible. To my surprise, she responded pretty quickly. She didn't seem shocked or offended at all. In fact, she said she appreciated how direct I was. After a bit of conversation, she said she would be open to it. Before anything happened, I showed my boyfriend her profile. I wanted to make sure he was comfortable with her too. He immediately said he trusted my choice. That part actually made me feel better. It made it seem like he cared more about my comfort than anything else. We talked with her for a few days before actually meeting up. The conversations were mostly about boundaries and making sure everyone felt comfortable. She seemed really respectful about everything. When the night finally happened, I was incredibly nervous. I kept wondering if I had made a mistake agreeing to it. But once things actually started, it wasn't as uncomfortable as I expected. In fact, it ended up going much better than I imagined. The girl was really kind and attentive. She seemed to notice right away how nervous I was and tried to make me feel more relaxed. That actually helped a lot. I started to enjoy the experience more than I thought I would. For me, the whole thing felt surprisingly positive. It felt like something new and different that we were exploring together. I assumed my boyfriend felt the same way. But after everything ended, I noticed his mood seemed different. At first I thought maybe he was just tired. The night had been a lot for everyone. I didn't want to overthink it. The next day he admitted that the experience wasn't what he expected. He said the girl seemed inexperienced and didn't really know how to divide her attention properly. According to him, the whole situation felt awkward instead of exciting. I tried to explain that she had mostly focused on me because I was nervous at the beginning. It seemed natural that she wanted to help me relax first. He didn't seem convinced by that explanation. Still, after a couple days the tension between us seemed to fade. He went back to acting normal again. I assumed the whole situation was behind us. What I didn't expect was that the girl and I would keep talking afterward. At first it was just a couple casual messages. But the conversations kept going. We ended up texting almost every day. It felt surprisingly easy to talk to her. She was funny, thoughtful, and really easy to open up to. Then something else happened that I didn't expect. She started sitting next to me in our seminar every week. After class we would usually grab coffee together and talk. It felt like a natural friendship for me. At the time, I honestly didn't think it was a big deal. That changed the moment I mentioned it to my boyfriend. When I told him that we had been hanging out after class, his reaction was immediate and intense. His expression changed in a way I hadn't seen before. He told me I needed to block her immediately. I thought he was joking at first. But he wasn't. When I pointed out that we were in the same class and saw each other every week anyway, he told me something that completely shocked me. He said I should drop the class. That was the moment I realized this situation was far more complicated than I had thought. When he told me I should drop the class, I honestly thought I had misheard him. It seemed like such an extreme reaction to something that felt harmless to me. I stared at him for a moment, waiting for him to clarify. But he didn't soften what he said at all. Instead, he repeated himself more firmly. He said if I was serious about respecting the boundaries we set, I would remove myself from the situation entirely. That was the moment I started feeling uneasy. Up until then, I had thought the situation was just an awkward aftermath of the threesome. I assumed maybe he was just feeling a little insecure and needed reassurance. But asking me to drop an entire class felt completely unreasonable. I tried to explain that the seminar was important for my degree. It wasn't something I could just casually leave because he felt uncomfortable. I thought if I said it calmly, he would realize how unrealistic his request sounded. Instead, the conversation escalated quickly. He accused me of breaking the agreement we made. According to him, the rule had always been that the third person would not stay in our lives afterward. From his perspective, continuing to talk to her was crossing that line. I tried to defend myself. I pointed out that the rule had been about emotional attachment, not basic conversation. At the time we made the rule, none of us expected to see each other again anyway. The situation had changed because we shared a class. He didn't accept that explanation. Instead, he started criticizing the girl herself. He said she was manipulative and knew exactly what she was doing. According to him, she had deliberately focused her attention on me during the threesome. I was completely confused by that accusation. From my perspective, she had simply been kind and attentive. She had noticed I was nervous and tried to make me comfortable. I couldn't understand why he suddenly saw that as something malicious. The more we talked, the more defensive he became. He kept repeating the same question over and over again. Every few minutes he would ask, "So you think I manipulated you?" Each time I tried to answer, he would interrupt me before I finished. It felt like he was trying to trap me into saying something specific. I remember feeling overwhelmed during that conversation. No matter what I said, it seemed to make him more upset. The entire discussion started going in circles. Eventually I brought up something I'd been holding back. I reminded him that I had never wanted the threesome in the first place. Agreeing to it had taken a lot of convincing and reassurance from him. Saying that out loud felt strangely relieving, but he reacted badly to hearing it. He immediately jumped back to the same question. Again, he asked if I believed he had manipulated me into agreeing. His tone made it clear he expected me to deny that idea. I didn't know how to respond. At that moment, I didn't actually think of him as manipulative. But I did feel like the entire situation had started because of something he wanted. Trying to explain that felt impossible in the middle of the argument. Instead, the conversation collapsed completely. He started accusing me of being emotionally involved with the girl. According to him, continuing to talk to her meant I was basically cheating. Hearing that made me feel both angry and guilty at the same time. Part of me knew the accusation wasn't fair. At the same time, I couldn't deny that I enjoyed talking to her. Our conversations had become one of the highlights of my day. Admitting that to myself made the situation even more confusing. After that argument, we stopped speaking entirely. For 2 days, the apartment felt painfully quiet. We moved around each other like strangers, avoiding eye contact whenever possible. The tension was exhausting. During that time, my friends kept asking what was going on. When I finally told them the full story, their reactions were immediate. Almost every single one of them told me the same thing. They thought I should break up with him. At first I resisted that idea. 4 years felt like a long time to throw away over one argument. I kept thinking about all the good moments we had shared together. It felt wrong to erase that history so quickly, but another thought kept creeping into my mind. If our relationship was truly strong, why had one situation caused such a huge breakdown? The more I thought about it, the harder it became to ignore that question. Meanwhile, I kept texting the girl from my seminar. Even though I felt guilty about it, I couldn't stop responding to her messages. She was incredibly understanding about everything I was going through. Talking to her felt comforting. She listened without judging me. When I vented about the argument with my boyfriend, she didn't immediately tell me what I should do. Instead, she asked thoughtful questions that made me reflect on the situation more deeply. That kindness made me appreciate her even more. Eventually, I realized something uncomfortable. I was starting to look forward to our conversations more than I looked forward to seeing my boyfriend. Admitting that to myself made me feel terrible. At the same time, it also made certain things clearer. Over the past few weeks of my relationship, I had been feeling increasingly tense around him. Our conversations had become careful and guarded. Everything felt like it could turn into another argument. With her, things felt simple. We could talk about random topics for hours without any pressure. The contrast between those interactions started becoming impossible to ignore. A few days later, I finally decided to have a serious conversation with my boyfriend. Originally, I planned to suggest taking a break. I thought some distance might help us both calm down and think clearly. That seemed like a reasonable compromise. But once we actually started talking, everything changed. As I explained how I had been feeling, I realized something surprising. The more honest I became, the more certain I felt that the relationship wasn't working anymore. My original plan started to feel dishonest. Instead of suggesting a break, I told him I thought we should break up. He didn't react the way I expected. At first he was just quiet. Then he suddenly stood up and walked out of the room without saying much. The entire conversation ended faster than I imagined. Later that night he sent me a message. In the text he said he couldn't believe I was throwing away our entire relationship over this situation. He insisted that I would regret the decision once I had time to think about it. Reading that message made me feel strangely calm. For the first time in weeks, I felt certain about something. I didn't respond to his message. There were so many things I could have explained about why the relationship wasn't working anymore. But trying to summarize years of complicated emotions in a text felt pointless. Instead, I decided to move forward quietly. Around that same time, I began realizing something else. The more I talked to the girl from my seminar, the more obvious it became that my feelings toward her were changing. What had started as casual conversation now felt different. I think I was developing a crush on her. Recognizing that possibility filled me with mixed emotions. On one hand, it explained why our conversations felt so exciting and meaningful. On the other hand, it made me feel guilty about how everything had unfolded. The last thing I wanted was for her to become caught in the middle of my breakup. She had been nothing but kind and supportive from the beginning. Dragging her into a complicated emotional situation felt unfair. The more I thought about it, the clearer that became. I also realized something important about myself. For a long time I had never been completely sure about my sexuality. I had always assumed I was straight because that was the easiest explanation. But now I was starting to question that assumption. Even so, I knew this wasn't the right moment to explore those feelings. I had just ended a long-term relationship. My emotions were still messy and unpredictable. Starting something new right away would only complicate things further. So I made another difficult decision. Even though I cared about her and enjoyed talking to her, I planned to end those conversations too. Not because she had done anything wrong, but because I needed time to figure myself out. It felt like the most responsible choice. Looking back at everything that happened, I still feel a lot of complicated emotions. Part of me wishes things had unfolded differently. Another part of me knows that the situation forced me to confront problems I had been ignoring. In the end, I don't regret ending the relationship. Sometimes it takes a chaotic situation to reveal the truth about what isn't working. As painful as the experience was, it helped me see my relationship more clearly than ever before. And for that reason, I'm strangely grateful it happened.